Hello, I'm JP from the Way Biblical Fellowship, and this week's parsha is called Vezot Haberakhah, and it is the last Torah portion in this year's cycle. It includes the blessings that Moshe declared over the 12 tribes of Israel, and it acts as sort of a bookend on the Torah. It starts with the blessing that YHVH pronounced over mankind, and ends with the blessing that Moshe pronounces over the 12 tribes of Israel. It also covers Moshe's death and his subsequent burial by YHVH himself. So I hope that you enjoy it. Right, the Torah portion is called Vezot Haberakhah, okay? So, it's called Vezot Haberakhah, and it means this is the blessing, which is also the last portion of the entire Torah, okay? So, we've come to an end of the Torah again, okay? We've come to the end of another cycle, so praise the Lord for that. Each trip through the Torah cycle brings more and more accountability and less room for error. And what it says in Acts 15 basically is that they will be taught the basics, and then as they hear Moses preach, they'll incorporate it more and more into their lives. And that's of course what we're to do as well. Charlie said it the other week. He was talking about it's not a journey from disobedience to obedience. It's a journey of I'm going to be obedient in what I know. And then I'll know more and more, and I'll be obedient to it as I learn it, okay? So each trip through the Torah brings more opportunity to live a blessed life and to please and serve the Creator. There are two different ways of looking at it. It's either, oh no, there's more that I need to do, or look at it, learning the Torah gives me the opportunity to reap the blessings that He promises and to serve the God that we love. So with each additional height to which our Torah study takes us, we find ourselves challenged to let go of comfortable but immature attitudes, familiar but erroneous belief systems, and habitual but unbiblical practices, and time-consuming and energy-draining relationships. Okay, it's just a process of getting leaner and leaner and more in line with what the Creator wants. So from our higher vantage point, we can see things, we can see such things for what they are. But when that happens, we realize that these things have at best lost any value they ever possessed for us or for those around us, and at worst are totally inconsistent with where YHVH is calling us to go from here. Every year we study Torah, it pushes us to change. It both empowers us and requires us to conform ourselves to it. And it's just about the mindset, how you see it. Is this a burden? Is this something that's going to strip away from you things that you want to do in your flesh? Or do you just see it as this is what God's will is? I want to do these things because I know that they'll bring blessing and they'll bring me happiness. But any perceived detriment or discomfort inherent in these changes called for Torah is much more than counterbalanced by the tangible benefits of drawing closer to YHVH. And everyone knows this. Everyone's got an experience of this. Okay? For one thing, the further one progresses, the more incredible is the view. Okay, that's something that actually took from a Torah portion of Bill Bullock's. Bill, who was here on Thursday, okay? That's something that he says, and it's something that he was talking about yesterday. He was saying the higher that you go with it, the better the view is. The more that you understand, okay, you shema his voice, you trust and obey what he says, and then you begin to see exactly why he says it. So the blessing which Moshe speaks over Israel is the bookend to the blessing YHVH spoke over Adam at the beginning. It can be compared to and contrasted with the blessing in Genesis. Someone said to me a little while ago, I said, I don't like the fact that the Torah portion starts and it's the fall of man, and then it ends and it's people getting stuff wrong. But that's not at all how it starts and ends. It starts with YHVH blessing man. And it ends with Moshe blessing the tribes. It's beautiful, okay? There's always the blessing there. There's always that God blesses us in our lives. That's just what he wants for us. He's just explaining over and over again, I'll give you this blessing, okay? All you've got to do is do these dead simple things, and you set yourself aside for me. Okay, Genesis 1:28 says, and God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. That's just what he wanted. Okay, he just said, go into the garden and it's all going to be brilliant for you. Man went into the garden and said, do you know what, actually, he's told us to do this one thing, to not eat of this tree. Do you reckon we just eat of this tree? Probably a good idea, isn't it? We can see that, the ripples of that in all of our lives. We can see the temptation that comes to break God's word and to stray away from it. Maybe that's better. It's calling us away. So Moshe's final blessing is spoken only over one bloodline, the bloodline of Jacob, through Isaac, through Abraham, through Terah, back through Shem, through Noah, back through Seth. So Jehovah's blessing in Genesis was spoken over Adam and Eve and their descendants. It's over all mankind. The blessing was spoken over all mankind at that point. Moshe's blessing was only spoken over the tribes of Israel. The tribes descended from Jacob, who stand poised to enter the land. Okay, at this point they're just ready to cross over the Jordan to go in to conquer the Canaanites. Just as Adam and Eve were set to enter the Garden of Eden when YHVH spoke his blessing over them. Israel had been separated out from the rest of mankind, just as YHVH had separated light from darkness. It's exact mirror of what happens at the beginning of Genesis. YHVH has, through the events recorded in Torah, between the bookends, divinely separated the descendants of Adam into two factions, Israel and the nations. What are we to understand from the fact that the final blessing of Torah is only spoken to and over the tribes descended from Jacob? Because you could get very kind of exclusive about this and say, oh, it's just about Israel, okay? Why were the rest of Adam's descendants, like the descendants of Noah's sons Ham and Japheth, as well as the Shemites with other bloodlines other than that of Jacob, excluded from the concluding blessing of Torah? How in the light of this glaring contrast can the concluding blessing spoken by Moshe in parsha Vezot Haberakhah be compared to the universal blessing? Does this exclusion of all but Israel from this final blessing of Torah mean that YHVH has abandoned the rest of mankind? Does it mean that he has given up on the vast majority of Adam's descendants? I've heard people teaching this. Okay, I've heard that basically God's only interested in these people. All the rest of them, he just doesn't care about. It's not his will that any should perish. He calls everyone to him. It's just down to man and man's own free will. Okay. Oh, I had that sound effect from last week. That didn't work very well, did it? Remember, if you will, that it was YHVH's plan that these 12 tribes and their descendants forever were not just to receive YHVH's blessing, but were to release that blessing on the rest of mankind. And that's the key to it. He blesses his people so that they can be a blessing to the rest of mankind. In Genesis 12, 2-3, speaking to Abraham, YHVH said, and I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great. And thou shalt be a blessing, and I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. And in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. So he's taken this people, and he said, right, you're going to be a light to the other people, okay? That's just what he wants us to be. He just wants us to be called out. In the millennium, we will live in Israel. Okay, and Israel will be the light to the nations that Israel was called to be all along. He had to scatter Israel into all of the nations and say, okay, Go and individually be lights. There'll be little pockets of you in all of the nations. In the millennium, you'll gather everyone together, and Israel will be the light to the nations, and the Torah will go out from Zion. Okay, so the Torah portion starts, Deuteronomy 33, verse 1. Now this is the blessing with which Moshe, the man of God, blessed the sons of Israel before his death. He said that YHVH came from Sinai and dawned on them from Seir. He shone forth from Mount Paran. Mount Paran is where Andrew was talking about before. It's in Mecca. Okay, that's where it's thought to be anyway. He dawned on them from Seir. Seir is the place that we've been talking about for weeks. That's it's in Jordan at the moment. Okay, and came from Sinai. But look at the language that's used there: dawn, shone. Okay, it's language of light. And he came from the midst of the 10,000 holy ones. At his right hand there was flashing lightning for them. So on the first day of creation, he said, "Let there be light," or "Let light be," Yehi or. And today he is instructing his people to be that light, the light he has commanded to the world. He used man's fall and the disobedience of his people, which resulted in them being scattered, to take the light to the Gentile nations. Everything that happens, we were looking at last week, the sovereignty of YHVH, all of these bad things that happen, he uses all of them. That's not his will. He didn't make people do that. Man has free will. But he'll use everything for his glory. When man does something that's bad, he just turns it round and uses it. Proverbs 6:23 says, "For the commandments is a light, is a lamp, and the law is light, and reproofs of instruction are the way of life. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet, and a light unto my path." That's how we're to be, a light in the world. That's how we're to shine the light. That's the light that we are to shine. Okay, we can't say that we are a light if we don't have the source of life. Well, source of light, source of life as well. Verse 3 says, "Indeed, he loves the people. All your holy ones are in your hand, and they followed in your steps. Everyone receives of your words. Moshe charged us with the law, an inheritance for the assembly of Jacob." So this is linking the law, the Torah. Obviously, we've discussed before, law is a terrible translation of Torah. But we see this word here, inheritance. He's given his Torah as an inheritance to the assembly of Jacob. Okay, word for assembly there is kahal. It's the same word in the New Testament, ecclesia. Okay, it's assembly. Ecclesia is translated as church. So you could say that said the church of Jacob. Okay, it really doesn't matter. Church is it's a term that's become understood through a narrow definition now that it doesn't have. But the assembly of Jacob, that's us. So in Deuteronomy 33:4, Moshe describes Torah as an inheritance, marashah, passed down to the assembly of Jacob. There's a more common Hebrew word for inheritance, nachalah, which is related to nachal. Okay, they've got the same verb root. Nachal is a word for a river or a stream, and signifies something that is passed down automatically across generations, just as a river's water would flow. Okay, so it's got that imagery built into the word that it's something that will pass down, that will flow down. However, the word used in Deuteronomy 33:3 to describe the inheritance of Torah describes something to which you have legitimate title, but which you need to react to in order to acquire. The inherited position, the nachalah of the high priest, was handed down from father to son in the Levitical line, whereas Yeshua's priesthood was attributed because he was dedicated to YHVH, but was a firstborn like Melchizedek. He inherited it, marashah, but there was action required to claim it. Okay, he was dedicated to YHVH. It wasn't something that was just passed down to him because he was in a certain bloodline. It was something that he had to act and take hold of. The sages point out that by a simple change in pronunciation, turning a sheen into a seen, inheritance becomes betrothal. Now in the original language, when you've got a seen or a sheen written, Okay, it doesn't have a little dot over one side of it, which tells you whether it's a sh or a s sound, so it could be either. And thus, Deuteronomy 33:4 could be read, Moshe commanded a Torah for us, a betrothal. Okay, that's Morasah. If it's got a hard S sound, it's Morasah. It would be betrothal of the congregation of Jacob. And we don't know which one it is. It could be betrothal, it could be inheritance. Both of them make sense. And I think that, obviously, guided by the Ruach, that comes through for a reason. It's an example of Hebrew wordplay. As a side note, this is not a change in the ancient Torah scrolls, as these markings were added much later. So in Ezekiel 16:8 tells us something that indicates that betrothal is much more applicable. It says, now when I passed by thee and looked upon thee, behold, thy time was the time of love, and I spread my skirt over thee and covered thy nakedness. Yea, I swear unto thee and entered into a covenant with thee, saith the Lord Yehovah, and thou becamest mine. Okay, that's betrothal language there, where it's talking about I entered into a covenant with you. What happened at the same time when he entered into the covenant with them? He gave them the Torah. So Maimonides notes that the first verse refers to the congregation of Jacob, not exclusively to the physical seed, i.e. the natural descendants of the Israelites. This implies that the Torah will become an inheritance for all those who will congregate with Jacob, all who are grafted into Israel, and therefore members of God's congregation. Okay, so it's not an inheritance that's passed on to a physical group of people. It's an inheritance that's passed on spiritually to anyone who would associate themselves and would come into covenant. Torah was not given as a temporary covenant. It was not designed to fade away when Messiah died. He is the Word made flesh, and he is alive. Okay, he died, yeah, sure, but he was resurrected afterwards, and he's alive now, just as the Word is. Torah is instead called an eternal heritage entrusted to Israel for all time. We are betrothed, Morasah, to Yeshua. That's certain. We are the bride of Yeshua, who is the same essence as the Torah, the word of Yehovah made flesh. We are made ready for the marriage through the acceptance and practice of his word, Torah. Just simply how it works. The people that he's going to accept as his bride are the ones who are obedient and conform themselves to what he expects. Makes perfect sense to me. Exodus 6:6-8 says, wherefore, say unto the children of Israel, I am Yehovah, and I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians, and I will rid you out of their bondage, and put you under the bondage of the law. That's what it says. And I will redeem you with a stretched out arm, and with great judgments. We were redeemed with a stretched out arm as well. And I will take you to me for a people, again, betrothal language, and I will be to you a God, and ye shall know that I am Yehovah your God, which bringeth you out from under the burden of the Egyptians. And I will bring you in unto the land, concerning the which I did swear to give it to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. I will give it to you for an, same word there, to Morashah. I am Yehovah. That was his original promise. Before they'd even left Egypt, he said, I will give you this inheritance, this betrothal. He's talking to them and saying, I'm going to take you as mine. Okay, verse 5, Deuteronomy 33:5 says, and he was king in Jeshurun when the heads of the people were gathered, the tribes of Israel together. Okay, so this section is his blessings that he speaks over the tribes. He gives each tribe a particular allotment. Hebrew language scholars are challenged by this passage, as there are Hebrew words and phrases in these blessings that appear nowhere else in the Bible. It's very difficult to kind of give them any context because they're not used anywhere else. It's difficult to understand how they were used. It is one of the rare places in the Hebrew scriptures where there are some differences between the oldest Hebrew manuscripts as well. This guy, Jeffrey Tiggy, Emeritus A.M. Ellis Professor of Hebrew and Semitic Languages. Okay, Semite actually comes from Shemite. It's the descendants of Shem. Okay, this is what he says about it. He says, it is full of rare words, syntactic difficulties, grammatical inconsistencies, and opaque allusions. Okay, so let's have a look at it. If I can't make anything of this, then neither can this guy who's got letters after his name and stuff. Okay, about Reuben, he says, may Reuben live and not die, for his men, nor his men be few. Okay, so it's not the greatest blessing, is it? Yeah, may he live and not die. Nor his men be few. Okay, this is quite possibly why. Genesis 44, 3-4, it says, Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity, and the excellency of my power. Okay, this is him describing what it is to be a firstborn. He's saying, this is the position that you have. Now he says, this is what you've done with it. Unstable as water, thou shalt not excel, because thou wentest up to thy father's bed, then defiledest thou it. He went up to my couch. So this is Jacob speaking. Now what Reuben had done is he'd slept with Bilhah, okay, his father's concubine, who's basically in the position of being his father's wife. Now, the Torah was added because of transgressions of men. Paul tells us that. This is what the Torah says about that sort of thing. Leviticus 20 verse 11 says, if there is a man who lies with his father's wife, he has uncovered his father's nakedness. Both of them shall surely be put to death. Their blood guiltiness is upon them. So this is very, very serious in YHVH's eyes. Sleep with your dad's wife and both of you need to be put to death. Okay, verse 7 says, and this regarding Judah. So this is the blessing for Judah. So he said, hear, O YHVH, the voice of Judah, and bring him to his people. With his hands he contended for them. And may you be a help against his adversaries. Now I think it's interesting that it says here, hear, O YHVH, the voice of Judah. Okay, Judah is the one that he's going to hear. Okay, what does Scripture tell us about those that YHVH hears and those that he doesn't hear? Proverbs 28 verse 9 says, he that turneth his ear away from hearing the Torah, even his prayer shall be abomination. Okay, so he says, hear Judah. Judah's going to have the Torah. Listen to what they've got to say. Elsewhere in Scripture it says, if they haven't got the Torah, then even their prayer is an abomination. Genesis 49, 8-12 says, Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies. Thy father's children shall bow down before thee. Okay? Who did the Messiah come from? Which tribe? Came from Judah. So it's a fulfillment of this prophecy. This is what Jacob says to him. And Judah is a lion's whelp from the prey. My son, thou art gone up. He stooped down and is crouched as a lion, and as an old lion, who shall rouse him up? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be. Now Shiloh is the Messiah. And what actually happened is the Romans took away the Jews' ability to enact the death sentence. So they saw it as the scepter had departed from Judah. Now at this time, Yeshua was a young man. They didn't know that the Messiah had come, but this absolutely was fulfilled. They went around wearing sackcloth and ashes in mourning at this, because they thought the word of God had been broken. They thought the Messiah's not come and the scepter's departed from Judah. They didn't know about Yeshua. Binding his foal unto the vine, and his ass's colt unto the choice vine. He washed his garments in wine, and his clothes in the blood of grapes. Now, I notice here, it talks about a lion's whelp, okay? And then it talks about being an old lion, okay? And here, a foal and an ass's colt. It's something that's young and then something that's fully grown. So I think there's something in this. When Judah is young, he's bound to the vine, okay, the Torah. When he's fully developed, then he's bound to the choice vine, the Messiah. He washed his garments in wine and his clothes in the blood of grapes. We've been looking at the fact that wine is false doctrine, okay? We're given robes of righteousness to wear. Judah has washed his robes in false doctrine. Okay, he hasn't kept his robes clean. He tried to keep his robes clean, but he's washed it with false doctrine as opposed to the water of the word. Verse 12 says, his eyes shall be red with wine and his teeth white with milk. Okay, it doesn't mean this. Okay, his eyes shall be red with wine. Okay, it's talking about him being intoxicated by this false doctrine, and his teeth white with milk. I think that this is talking about, Paul talks about the milk of the word. He talks about we need to move on from the milk, okay? The milk to Paul and to Judah, that was the Torah, okay? That was the very foundation. They came into Torah, they were following the Torah. Their teeth are white with milk, okay? It's had that effect on them. They've only got the milk, and then they've made drunk with false doctrine. That's how I see it anyway. It might mean something completely different. Verse 8 says, O Levi, of Levi he said, let your Thummim and your Urim belong to your godly man. Okay, your godly man is Moshe. Moshe was a Levite. And Thummim and Urim, we're talking about the things that they used, like casting lots. Okay, it's the way that decisions would be made. So basically, what this is saying is, let your decisions be made according to Moshe, with whom you proved at Massah, with whom you contended at the waters of Meribah. These two places are actually the same place, two different names for the same place, but there are two different events. Okay, first one, Massah. The events of Massah were the first test of Moshe. This is all the way back in Exodus 17. The first time when the water starts flowing and everyone's complaining to Moshe. And he strikes the rock the first time. That's what God's told him to do, is to strike the rock. So he passes this test. When YHVH stopped the water supply, murmuring and complaining was directed towards Moshe. Moshe did respond to the provocation like his forefather Levi, didn't respond to it like his forefather Levi had responded to the rape of Dinah. Okay, so when Jacob blesses Levi, he brings up Levi and Simeon, who went and killed everyone in Shechem because Dinah was raped. Moshe kind of redeems himself at this point. He doesn't let the anger well up inside of him. This other place, Meribah, or this other name, Meribah. The events of Meribah are in Numbers 20, the second time that the water starts flowing, and there was a second test of Moshe. When YHVH stopped the water supply the second time, murmuring and complaining was this time directed towards Moshe and Aaron, but this time Moshe grew angry and struck the rock when he had been told to speak to it. Both times he goes and he speaks to God, but he gets two different answers about what he should do. The first time he listens to God about what he should do, and the second time he strikes the rock because he's angry with the people. For this, Moshe would not enter the promised land with his people. He will enter it ultimately. He'll be in the millennium kingdom, I firmly believe. But he didn't get to lead his people into the land, and that obviously gives us the prophetic picture of Joshua leading his people into the land. Moshe perhaps now has the benefit of hindsight. Back in the moment, he could have reacted or responded to the situation. The issue was never really about water. It was a test of Moshe. So YHVH was testing his reaction to provocation and his willingness to shema his voice over indulge his own feelings. So Moshe knew what he wanted to do in the situation. He went to God and he asked him, and God told him a specific thing that he should do, and he went and did the opposite. Okay, 33:9 says, who said of his father and his mother, I did not consider them. This is talking about Levi. And he did not acknowledge his brothers, nor did he regard his own sons, for they observed your word and kept your covenant. In Exodus 32, we see what this is talking about. This is after the sin of the golden calf. It says, and Moshe stood in the gate of the camp and said, whoever is for YHVH, come to me. And all the sons of Levi gathered together to him. So that was why the Levites were chosen to be the priesthood, because they were the ones who were obedient to YHVH. He said to them, thus says YHVH, the God of Israel, every man of you put his sword upon his thigh, and go back and forth from gate to gate in the camp, and kill every man his brother, and every man his friend, and every man his neighbor. Now, people don't like the fact that YHVH said this. I've heard people say, well, it just says that Moses said that YHVH said that. It doesn't necessarily mean that he did say that. Just read the rest of the Bible, the scriptures that we looked at last week. Definitely the sort of thing that YHVH would say, because he sees things completely different to us. He sees all of this idolatry that's going on in the camp. He says, just go in and kill them, because this is no good, and this isn't going to lead to a place where you dwell in the millennium with the Messiah ruling. Okay, if this is allowed to continue, it's just going to fall flat on its face. Verse 28 says, so the sons of Levi did as Moshe instructed, and about 3,000 men of the people fell that day. So that's what it's talking about there when it says that he didn't acknowledge his brothers or have regard for his own sons. All of these people who would be part of other tribes, okay, intermarrying within the tribes. Luke 14:25-26. Yeshua gives credence to what's happened here, obviously, where he says, and there went great multitudes with him, and he turned and said unto them, if any man come to me and hate not his father and mother and wife and children and brethren and sisters, yea, in his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. An example of some hard words that Yeshua spoke. He didn't care about all the people following him. He just turned around and said, oh yeah, if you don't renounce all your family and stuff, then you can't be my disciple. Everyone's like, oh, okay, thanks Yeshua. But this is the same principle that we see all the way through Scripture. Choose God. God should be the most important thing. Okay, it doesn't matter if you've got brethren, sisters, children, your own wife, your father and your mother. Okay, these things, if you choose them over God, if they're trying to lead you away from God and you choose that over God, then you can't be Yeshua's disciple. That's what he says. Malachi 2:4-8 says this. Okay, we're on the blessing for Levi. So this is what Malachi said about Levi. And ye shall know that I have sent this commandment unto you, that my covenant might be with Levi, saith YHVH Sevaot. My covenant with him was with him of life and peace. And I gave them to him for the fear wherewith he feared me, and he was afraid before my name. This is what Bill was talking about on Thursday. These are the people that are particularly set apart for YHVH, those who fear his name. As he said, those that tremble at his name. The law of truth was in his mouth, and iniquity was not found in his lips. He walked with me in peace and equity, and did turn many away from iniquity. Okay, this is Levi. This is the Levitical priesthood. This is how YHVH sees Levi. He sees him doing good. He doesn't say, oh, when he inflicted bondage upon my people, but luckily what I'm going to do is send my son, and I'm going to do away with all of the nonsense that Levi was doing. Okay, he reverences Levi. For the priest's lips should keep knowledge. Okay, in Hebrew, the knowledge. Okay, it's talking about the Torah. And they should seek the law at his mouth, for he is the messenger of YHVH Sevaot. But ye are departed out of the way. Ye have caused many to stumble at the law. Ye have corrupted the covenant of Levi, saith YHVH Sevaot. So he's talking to people who've corrupted the covenant of Levi, causing people to stumble at keeping the law. Okay, doesn't end well for them. I'm not going to read on in the passage, but Malachi 2, it's worth a read. Okay, 33:10 says, they shall teach your ordinances to Jacob, and your law to Israel. They shall put incense before you, and whole burnt offerings on your altar. This is a blessing, remember. Verse 11 says, O YHVH, bless his substance, and accept the work of his hands. Shatter the loins of those who rise up against him, and those who hate him, so that they will not rise again. It doesn't end well for people who rise up against people who are teaching the law. Genesis 49, this is Jacob's blessing of Levi. Simeon and Levi are brethren. Instruments of cruelty are in their habitations. O my soul, come not thou into their secret. Unto their assembly mine honor be not thou united. For in their anger they slew a man, and in their self-will they dig down a wall. Cursed be their anger, for it was fierce, and their wrath, for it was cruel. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. Okay, so the Levites were divided in Jacob, scattered in Israel. They were in all of the different places. They didn't have an inheritance, they didn't have an allotment in the land. Okay, so the tribe of Levi, okay, they underwent teshuvah. Through the tribe, though the tribe of Simeon had not. So the two that were cursed that would be scattered in Jacob. Levi turned around and ended up doing good. Simeon, however, didn't. As it happened, the tribe of Simeon was later assimilated into the other tribes of Israel and did not have its own territory, whereas the tribe of Levi became itinerant Torah teachers of Israel. In the book of Revelation, we are told that 12,000 descendants of Shimon, Simeon, will be numbered among the 144,000 sealed witnesses. Okay, so they do get redeemed. The tribe of Dan, we'll come to in a second, they're not mentioned in Revelation. Moshe was giving his final words to the 12 tribes only hours before his death. And in his final words, Moshe leaves out Simeon, who had been given a cursed prophetic future by Jacob. So Moshe, hours before his death, he's speaking these blessings over the tribes, and he misses out Simeon. And blessing of Moshe was only upon 11 of the 12 tribes. That's a prophetic picture of something that we see in the New Testament. 13 centuries later, in the time of Yeshua, when he speaks his final words to his disciples, hours before his death, by means of offering blessings at the Passover table, all 12 disciples are there, but one disappears and fetches the temple guard, who arrests Yeshua and turns him over to the Romans to be tried and killed. John 13:26 tells us something very interesting about the guy that left, Judas, about his lineage. Yeshua answered, "He it is to whom I shall give a sup when I have dipped it." And when he had dipped the sup, he gave it to Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon, okay, the son of Simeon, you might say, or the son of Shimon. Okay, this is translated from the Greek. It's not translated from the Hebrew. If it was translated from the Hebrew, it would say Simeon. Verse 12 says, of Benjamin he said, "May the beloved of YHVH dwell in security by him, who shields him all the day, and he dwells between his shoulders." Okay, so it's talking about YHVH dwelling between Benjamin's shoulders. Benjamin's shoulders were the hills upon which the temple was built, where YHVH would dwell. Okay, the temple is not in Judah. Okay, Mount Zion is in Judah, but the temple was on Mount Moriah, which is within Benjamin. Genesis 49:27 says, "Benjamin shall ravin as a wolf. In the morning he shall devour the prey, and at night he shall divide the spoil." Okay, so I don't know. It could be taken either way. Could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. I don't really know. It sounds like a good thing to me. Verse 13, of Joseph he said, "Blessed of YHVH be his land, with the choice things of heaven, with the dew and from the deep lying beneath." Now, Joseph always gets an amazing blessing, okay? And we are descended from the tribe of Joseph, at least spiritually, okay? We're Ephraim. Verse 14 says, "And with the choice yield of the sun, and with the choice produce of the months, and with the best things of the ancient mountains, and with the choice things of the everlasting hills, and with the choice things of the earth and its fullness, and the favor of him who dwelt in the bush," obviously Jehovah, "let it come to the head of Joseph, and to the crown of the head of the one distinguished among his brothers." Okay, Ephraim is the one who is distinguished among his brothers. That's how the entire house of Israel is referred to, as the house of Joseph, as Ephraim. Genesis 49, this is what Jacob had to say. "Joseph is a fruitful bough, even a fruitful bough by a well, whose branches run over the wall." Okay, and does the well provide water, the water of the word? The archers have sorely grieved him and shot at him and hated him, but his bow abode in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty God of Jacob. From thence is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. Even by the God of thy father, who shall help thee, and by the Almighty, who shall bless thee with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that lieth under, blessings of the breasts and of the womb. I don't know what this is talking about, blessings of the deep, but okay, it says there, from the deep lying beneath. Both times that the blessing is given over Joseph, it mentions the deep underneath. So is it talking about Sheol? Don't know, not sure. It just says the deep. Okay, the blessings of thy father have prevailed above the blessings of my progenitors unto the utmost bound of the everlasting hills. They shall be on the head of Joseph and on the head of him that was separate from his brethren. Now it goes into the two tribes. Okay, it talks about the tribe of Manasseh and the tribe of Ephraim, who are Joseph's sons. Jacob says, what I'll do is I'll adopt you as sons, and I will treat you as my own sons, basically. So both Jacob and Moshe say something about Ephraim and Manasseh. As the firstborn of his ox, majesty is his, and his horns are the horns of the wild ox. With them he will push the peoples all at once to the ends of the earth. And those are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and those are the 10,000s of Manasseh. I came across something interesting the other day. At the beginning of Ezekiel, it talks about the presence of YHVH going around, and it is taken by beings that are made up of 4 other animals. One of them is the ox. Now it turns out that the other beings, the other animals that are mentioned, are actually the banners of the tribes that were at the north, east, west, south of the Mishkan. Okay, so it says that these beasts that are taken around the presence of YHVH in the spiritual are the same beasts that are marked on as at the north, east, west, and south of the Mishkan. So they were the same ones that were taken around the Mishkan when they dwelt in the desert. Genesis 48:14-22 says, and Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it upon Ephraim's head, who was the younger, and his left upon Manasseh's head, guiding his hands wittingly. For Manasseh was the firstborn. And he blessed Joseph and said, God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac did walk, the God which fed me all my life long unto this day, the angel which redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads, and let my name be named on them, and the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. And when Joseph saw his father had laid his right hand upon the head of Ephraim, it displeased him. And he held up his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head unto Manasseh's head. So to Joseph, Manasseh was the firstborn, he should get the firstborn blessing. Okay, so he goes to swap his hands around. But to YHVH, and Jacob is acting prophetically at this point, to YHVH, the one who is the firstborn isn't necessarily the one who is born first. Verse 18 says, and Joseph said unto his father, not so, my father, for this is the firstborn. Put thy right hand upon his head. And his father refused and said, I know it, my son, I know it. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great. But truly his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations. Okay, there's a phrase that we've looked at before, Melo HaGoyim. Okay, it's the fullness of the Gentiles. So when Paul talks in Romans 11 of the fullness of the Gentiles coming back in, and Judah not being saved until the fullness of the Gentiles comes in, this is what he's talking about. Ephraim shall become a multitude of nations. Ephraim are the ones who are scattered amongst the nations. And he blessed them that day, saying, in thee shall Israel bless thee, saying, God make thee as Ephraim and as Manasseh. And he set Ephraim before Manasseh. And Israel said unto Joseph, behold, I die, but God shall be with you, and bring you again into the land of your fathers. Moreover, I have given to thee one portion above thy brethren, which I took out of the hand of the Amorite with my sword and with my bow. Joseph was given the double portion blessing. Okay, Judah was given the priestly blessing, and it was from Judah that Yeshua descended, but it's from Joseph that Ephraim descended, that his people who will return and will be his bride are descended. Zechariah 10:6 says, and I will strengthen the house of Judah, and I will save the house of Joseph, and I will bring them again to place them. For I have mercy upon them, and they shall be as though I had not cast them off. For I am Yehovah their God, and will hear them. This will be in the time of the Messiah, I believe. It will be in the time of the Messiah when he's ruling from Israel. It says, in his days Judah shall be saved, and Israel shall dwell safely. Verse 18 says, of Zebulun he said, rejoice Zebulun in your going forth, and Issachar in your tents. They will call peoples to the mountain. There they will offer righteous sacrifices. For they will draw out the abundance of the seas and the hidden treasures of the sand. This is what Jacob says. He says, Zebulun shall dwell at the haven of the sea, and he shall be for an haven of ships, and his border shall be unto Zidon. Issachar is a strong ass crouching down between two burdens, and he saw that rest was good, and the land it was pleasant, and bowed his shoulder to bear, and became a servant unto tribute. Now this is the tribe that Charlie and I have been told that we're a part of. The symbol of the donkey. Okay, being stubborn. I think that it's probably accurate. I thought it was funny the other day when on Yom Kippur, when Charlie was reading out, he said, the sin of obduracy. I don't even know what obduracy is. Stubbornness. Okay, but Zebulun, it says basically they'll dwell at the haven of the sea. They'll be merchants is basically what it's saying. So Zebulun were rich. And what Zebulun did is they provided the money for Issachar to study the word. Okay, so Zebulun and Issachar are always mixed together because they were dependent upon each other. Verse 20 says, of Gad, he said, blessed is the one who enlarges Gad. He lies down as a lion and tears the arm, also the crown of the head. Then he provided the first part for himself, for there the ruler's portion was reserved. And he came with the leaders of the people. He executed the justice of Yehovah and his ordinances with Israel. I have no idea what any of that means, but Gad sounds like they're doing well. This is what Jacob said about Gad, very short. It says, Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. So again, cool, excellent, sounds good. Verse 22, of Dan, he said, Dan is a lion's whelp that leaps forth from Bashan. Jacob said of Dan, Dan shall judge his people. Dan means judge. As one of the tribes of Israel, Dan shall be a serpent by the way, an adder in the path that biteth the horse's heels, so that his rider shall fall backward. I have waited for thy Yeshua, O Yehovah. Okay, I think it's saying that I've waited for thy Yeshua. Now, when the 144,000 are mentioned in Revelation, Dan isn't a part of them, but when Yeshua returns in the millennial kingdom, Dan is numbered amongst the tribes. So I think that those two things are probably linked. Verse 23 says, of Naphtali he said, O Naphtali, satisfied with favor and full of the blessing of Yehovah, take possession of the sea and the south. Jacob said, Naphtali is a hind let loose. He giveth goodly words. Now, I think that those two things are linked. The goodly words that he has when he says, full of the blessing of Yehovah. I think they're the goodly words. What are goodly words to Yehovah? They're his word. Okay, I think that that's what it's talking about. Verse 24 says, of Asher he said, more blessed than sons is Asher. May he be favored by his brothers. May he dip his foot in oil. Your locks will be iron and bronze, and according to your days, so will your leisurely walk be. This is the tribe, obviously, that Charlie wants to be a part of. I don't know anything of the history of Asher. I know that there was somebody of the tribe of Asher who was Anna in Yeshua's time. Okay, so the tribe of Asher were still kind of about when Yeshua was there, even though the house of Israel had been exiled. It mentions that Asher is still there in some capacity. So they are blessed. This is what Jacob says about them. It says, out of Asher his bread shall be fat. You know what his bread is. And he shall yield royal dainties. Okay, sounds nice. So this is the differences in the order that they're mentioned. When Jacob mentions them, they're in a different order. Well, you'll see here, Simeon is actually within Judah's territory, and Simeon got assimilated into Judah. So he was scattered in Jacob. Verse 26 says, there is none like the God of Jeshurun, who rides the heavens to your help, and through the skies in his majesty. Now, this is quite weird language. He rides through the heavens. Does it mean literally? It says this in 2 Samuel 22. It says, in my distress I called upon Yahuwah and cried to my God, and he did hear my voice out of his temple, and my cry did enter into his ears. Then the earth shook and trembled, the foundations of heaven moved and shook, because he was wroth. There went up a smoke out of his nostrils, and fire out of his mouth devoured, coals were kindled by it. He bowed the heavens also, and came down, and darkness was under his feet. And he rode upon a cherub and did fly, and he was seen upon the wings of the wind. So I don't know whether this is something that we're going to see a literal fulfillment of, Yahuwah riding through the sky on a cherub, but it's mentioned in 2 places in Scripture that that's something that he does. So that's a bit weird. Verse 27 says, the eternal God is a dwelling place, and underneath are the everlasting arms. And he drove out the enemy from before you and said, destroy. So Israel dwells in security, the fountain of Jacob, secluded in a land of grain and new wine. His heavens also drop down dew. Okay, these 2 words here, drove out and dwells. These 2 Hebrew words, I'm not sure how they're pronounced because there's no vowel pointings there. But the point basically being is they're used before. Okay, it says in Genesis 3:24, so he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubims and the flaming sword, which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. The location of these 2 verbs in these 2 circumstances is not coincidental. The Torah is making an association between the banishment of Adam from the garden, the beginning of the Torah, and Israel returning to the land to settle at the end of the Torah. Thus we see Yehovah's plan for restoring mankind after his exile. Again, 2 bookmarks, beginning and end of the Torah, exactly the same. The inheritance of the land closes the circle that began when men were expelled from the Garden of Eden. I believe personally that the Garden of Eden, or at least the portion of it that's on the earth, is the land of Israel. It completely fits Adam being cast out of the garden, okay, and then Abraham coming back, and then Abraham leaving and going off to Egypt, and then Israel coming and entering into the garden again. Verse 29 says, blessed are you, O Israel, who is like you, a people saved by Yahuwah, who is the shield of your help and the sword of your majesty. So your enemies will cringe before you, and you will tread upon their high places. Deuteronomy 34 is about something different, about the death of Moshe. I said a couple of weeks ago, can you guess what happens in this Torah portion? Moshe dies. Doesn't die in that Torah portion. Okay, it mentions that he's going to die in that Torah portion. He actually dies in this Torah portion. So it starts and says, now Moshe went up from the plains of Moab to Mount Nebo to the top of Pisgah, which is opposite Jericho. And Yahuwah showed him all the land, Gilead as far as Dan, and all Naphtali, and the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, and all the land of Judah, as far as the western sea. A couple of things in this, okay? Moshe wouldn't have been able to see with his physical eyes, you wouldn't have been able to see all of that land. Okay, it would have been beyond his vision, but it says that Yehovah showed him these things. So it suggests that it was a vision. Otherwise, his eyes were just incredible. Also says this, the Western Sea. Now this phrase, the next time that this is used in the Tanakh, is in Nehemiah 8:18. It says, also day by day from the first day unto the last day. So it's quite possible that this should be translated as far as the last day. Okay, he gave him a prophetic vision that went all the way through time. Not only showed him all of the land, showed him what would happen all the way through time. Verse 3 says, and the Negev and the plain of the valley of Jericho, the city of palm trees as far as Zoar. Okay, palm trees, again, they're associated with the last days. They're associated with the wedding feast, with the Feast of Tabernacles, with the palm fronds being waved. Then Yehovah said to him, this is the land which I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, I will give it to your descendants. I have let you see it with your eyes, but you shall not go over there. So Moshe, the servant of Yehovah, died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of Yehovah. And he buried him in the valley of the land of Moab, opposite Beth Peor. And no man knows his burial place to this day. This is interesting. Okay? He buried him. Yehovah is the one who actually buried Moshe. No man knows his burial place. Okay? No man will ever know. Although Moshe was 120 years old when he died, his eye was not dim, nor his vigor abated. So the sons of Israel wept for Moshe in the plains of Moab 30 days. Then the days of weeping and mourning for Moshe came to an end. Now Joshua, the son of Nun, was filled with the spirit of wisdom, for Moshe had laid his hands on him, and the sons of Israel listened to him, and did as Yehovah had commanded Moshe. Since that time, no prophet has risen in Israel like Moshe, whom Yehovah knew face to face. Okay, even Yeshua, he was Yehovah. Okay, we didn't know him face to face like Moshe did. Well, how could he know himself face to face? For all the signs and wonders which Yehovah sent him to perform in the land of Egypt against Pharaoh, all his servants, and all his land, and for all the mighty power, and for all the great terror which Moshe performed in the sight of Israel. And that is a picture of where Moshe is buried. somewhere there. Okay? Now, I don't know what happened there. Moshe did not go out angry. He did not go out dejected. He went out as he began, with humility, with passion, and with grace. His last words to the people Yehovah placed in his charge so long ago were not stern words of rebuke. They were instead words of blessing. The first and last letter of Torah are Beit and Lamed, which spells Leb. It's the Hebrew word for heart, suggesting that the Torah reveals God's heart. Beit means house. A Lamed is a shepherd's staff. Torah is the house of the shepherd. That's the word picture that's there. However, the first and last letters of Scripture are Beit and Nun, which spells Ben, suggesting that Scripture as a whole reveals his son. Okay, Ben is the word for son. Beit means house, and Nun Sophet means the final son, who is known to be Yeshua. The Bible is the house of Yeshua. That's what the word picture is there. Oh, I thought that it was a good idea to not just read the end of Torah, to read the end of the entire of Scripture, because this is the promise that we have. It says, and I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven, saying, behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them and be their God. Fulfillment of what Charlie's talking about in the day of Jezreel, where it says, I'll take them back, and they will be my people again, and I will be their God. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow, nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. And he that sat upon the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. And he said unto me, Write, for these words are true and faithful. And he said unto me, It is done. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of water of life freely. He that overcometh shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son. But the fearful and the unbelieving and the abominable and the murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. And there came unto me one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials full of the 7 last plagues, and talked with me, saying, Come hither, I will show thee the bride, the Lamb's wife. And he carried me away in the spirit to a great and high mountain, and showed me that great city, the holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from God. And what we're told is the 144,000 are taken to the New Jerusalem to worship God. Having the glory of God, and her light was like unto a stone most precious, even like a jasper stone, clear as crystal. And had a wall great and high, and had 12 gates, and at the gates 12 angels, and the names written thereon, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. On the east 3 gates, on the north 3 gates, and on the south 3 gates, and on the west 3 gates. And the wall of the city had 12 foundations, and in them the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. And he that talked with me had a golden reed to measure the city, and the gates thereof, and the wall thereof. And the city lieth foursquare, and the length is as large as the breadth. And he measured the city with the reed, 12,000 furlongs. The length and the breadth and the height of it are equal. And he measured the wall thereof 144 cubits, according to the measure of a man, that is, of the angel. And the building of the wall of it was of jasper, and the city was pure gold, like unto clear glass. And the foundations of the wall of the city were garnished with all manner of precious stones. The first foundation was jasper, the second sapphire, the third a chalcedony, the fourth an emerald, the fifth sardonyx, the sixth sardius, the seventh chrysolite, the eighth beryl, and ninth a topaz, the 10th a chrysoprasus, the 11th a jacinth, the 12th an amethyst. And the 12 gates were 12 pearls. Every several gate was of 1 pearl. And the street of the city was pure gold, as it were transparent glass. And I saw no temple therein, for YHVH, God Almighty, and the Lamb are the temple of it. And the city had no need of the sun, neither of the moon, to shine in it, for the glory of God did lighten it, and the Lamb is the light thereof. And the nations of them which are saved shall walk in the light of it, and the kings of the earth do bring their glory and honor into it. And the gates of it shall not be shut at all by day, for there shall be no night there, and they shall bring the glory and honor of the nations into it. And there shall in no wise enter into it anything that defileth, neither whatsoever worketh abomination or maketh a lie, but they which are written in the Lamb's book of life. And he showed me a pure river of water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding out of the throne of God and of the Lamb. In the midst of the street of it, and on either side of the river, was there the tree of life, which bare 12 manner of fruits, and yielded their fruit every month. And the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. And there shall be no more curse, but the throne of God and of the Lamb shall be in it, and his servants shall serve him. And they shall see his face, and his name shall be in their foreheads. And there shall be no night there, and they need no candle, neither light of the sun, for YHVH God giveth them light, and they shall reign forever and ever. And he said unto me, These sayings are faithful and true. And Yahuwah, God of the holy prophets, sent his angel to show unto his servants the things which must shortly be done. Behold, I come quickly. Blessed is he that keepeth the sayings of the prophecy of this book. And I, John, saw these things and heard them. And when I had heard and seen, I fell down to worship before the feet of the angel which showed me these things. Then saith he unto me, See thou do it not, for I am thy fellow servant, and of thy brethren the prophets, and of them which keep the sayings of this book. Worship God. And he saith unto me, Seal not the sayings of the prophecy of this book, for the time is at hand. He that is unjust, let him be unjust still. And he that is filthy, let him be filthy still. And he that is righteous, let him be righteous still. And he that is holy, let him be holy still. And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me to give every man according to his work shall be. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and end, the first and the last. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have the right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city. For without are dogs and sorcerers and whoremongers and murderers and idolaters, and whosoever loveth and maketh a lie. All those terms are terms for people who don't keep Torah in the Tanakh. Okay? I, Yeshua, have sent mine angel to testify unto you these things in the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David, and the bright and morning star. And the Spirit and the bride say, Come. And let him that heareth say, Come. And let him that is athirst come. And whosoever will, let him take the water of life freely. For I testify unto every man that heareth the words of the prophecy of this book. If any man shall add unto these things, God shall add unto him the plagues that are written in this book. And if any man shall take away from the words of the book of this prophecy, God shall take away his part out of the book of life, and of the holy city, and from the things which are written in this book. He which testifieth these things, surely I come quickly. Amen. Even so, come, Lord Yeshua. The grace of our Lord Yeshua HaMashiach be with you all. Amen.